Welcome to Clinically Speaking, the podcast that combines clinical insight with the chaos of reality TV, because somebody has to diagnose this drama.
For legal purposes, this is a joke. We would never diagnose someone who is not our client.
I'm Callie.
And I'm Alex.
We're licensed marriage and family therapists here to review episodes 15 through 26 of Love Island USA Season 7. I feel like I'm going through war right now.
I don't know if I can make this joke, but like, is this what the Great Depression felt like?
I'm not having a good time. From what I gather, no one else is having a good time.
No.
And like, really the only things that kept me going were the Megan Thee Stallion episode and the 5 seconds of NicOlandria that we got last week.
Yeah, basically the only
That's
things I
it.
tuned in for.
My cortisol levels are through the roof. To quote Amaya Papaya, my heart rate is tachycardic, and I am trying to turn this anxiety into excitement. But I'm really struggling.
I'm also struggling. I'm not having a good time. I rewatched videos of Kenny and Janae today just to show you. I said, I need to see actual Love Island content, not whatever this dystopian reality I'm watching is.
So real. Did it help?
It did. I was watching the scene where Kenny was crying. Oh, I just love him. And then it was somebody edited it where it was the end and he was saying how he loves how she says his name, Kenny.
Oh, what a time.
Oh,
I miss it. All right, well, how did we feel about Megan?
people think Huda and Amaya have strong reactions. They should have seen me watching a clip of Megan Thee Stallion.
Like before the episode even happened?
I saw it because obviously I follow Meg. I'm a huge Megan Thee Stallion fan. And I started freaking out. And then when I turned on the episode and I found out she was on, I started tearing up.
I love that for you.
I really did. I would have crumbled faster than Nature's granola bar when I saw Megan Thee Stallion. Faster than Austin when he sees Ariana walk in.
He's obsessed with her.
Honestly, that's the most like riveting couple on Love Island so far. I mean, who wouldn't though? She's everything.
Speaking of strong reactions, I have never seen Nic get dysregulated on this show until Megan Thee Stallion walked out.
I mean, a man with great taste. I'm sure that Nic is a hottie.
100%. But yeah, he literally, you see his pupils are like wicked.
Wicked.
My New England is showing. His pupils were really dilated. His movements were erratic. And I just don't think he was thinking straight because of her.
Very relatable. I was also not thinking straight watching Meg. And I also just love her because she changes the energy on the villa so much.
Yes, we needed it.
Yeah, she really, I think, shifted the tone, at least for a few episodes. And with it being such a heterosexual show, I feel like they really did try to feed the queer community by giving us the Cierra Shelley kiss, bringing on Meg Thee Stallion, who, at least from my understanding, is a bisexual queen. At least she is in her music. And I feel like the music selection was also very queer with Chapel and Janelle Monáe and then Troye Sivan. So I've been loving that.
Yeah, love to see it. Can we please talk about the dancing, though? Or the quote-unquote twerking that these men were supposedly doing. It was really giving Squirrels in My Pants from Phineas and Ferb.
Especially Austin and Taylor.
Especially Austin. Oh my god.
I mean, I think the boys were hilarious. My favorite was Nic. I actually did laugh out loud for him. I can't say I was watching them. Like, my attention wasn't on them, though.
No, I was locked in on the girls. I think that the fates really aligned to keep Huda in the villa because she needed to be in this challenge.
Yeah. I've been seeing a lot of tutorials online that came out from Huda's dance moves, let me tell you.
And you know what? Those are the real girls.
I agree. Speaking of girls, it is so wild. So Callie and I were talking for several weeks, I want to say, about what is a girl's girl. I interviewed people in my personal life to figure out their answers. This was some investigative journalism, okay? And then all of a sudden they have the discourse on the show about what is a girl's girl.
Yes. So Alex, what is a girl's girl?
So after all of my data analysis, I think I can safely say a girl's girl is someone who prioritizes her friendships with other women and works to address any internalized misogyny and or cultural messaging that could impact her relationship with other women.
I think that's a great definition. Although, honestly, I don't think any of the girls in this villa right now know what it is to be a girl's girl, at least by that definition. I think some of them sometimes show some signs of it, but nobody's really doing that consistently.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think we can see a little bit of being a girl's girl with the conversation with Cierra and Iris, after Iris said, essentially, you're trying to be a cool girl with the NicOlandria kiss that happened, which, you know, Callie and I
we will be discussing later
and watched about 1,000 times. So I thought that was awesome. And I think we see some glimpses of Cierra also being a girl's girl, although after that kiss with Shelly, she might be supporting women in more ways than just emotionally.
I think the best example of Cierra being a girl's girl is when she had those couple of sit-downs with Huda. She did such a good job of holding her accountable and communicating her discomfort with Huda's behavior while also showing so much empathy and compassion for her.
Yeah, she communicates in such a clear, kind, and direct way, which was difficult, especially given the circumstances. And I think that you can see in the conversation that she prioritizes Huda's feelings and tries to encourage her to be her best self, which feels very empowering and very girl's girl of her.
Yes,
yeah.
I loved it. We see her use what the Gottmans call a gentle or soft startup when giving Huda constructive criticism, which isn't exactly being a girl's girl, but it is good communication, which I think is necessary for being a good friend. She used I statements. She describes the situation in a non-judgmental way. She's clear about what she wants to see change and frames her expectations in a positive way. She's polite, and she acknowledged Huda's progress as well. So I was really impressed with her approach, and she's really the only one of the girls who addressed her concerns with Huda in the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was so important in this situation, is that she did address it immediately after it happened. And that's where I think things got a little derailed with Shelly and Huda when they had their conversation.
Yeah, so how do you think the Shelly and Huda conversations went in comparison?
I think that conversation went a little differently because they didn't address the conflict in the moment. And another thing I was thinking about in their conversation that could have helped it go a little bit better, aside from maybe not being in the Stand Your Business challenge,
which was super passive aggressive by nature.
Yes, they were really not set up for success there. But was using the fair fighting rules that we use with couples and in family work, is that you should bring up one issue at a time, because I think it's really overwhelming for somebody to hear all of someone's perceived mistakes all at once. So the listener can become a little defensive and emotionally flooded when they're trying to listen to multiple things at the same time. And I think that's what happened in this conversation with Huda and Shelly. I think that all of the girls, including Shelly, waited too long to air their frustration with Huda's behavior, which they have valid reasons to be upset. But I think the timing and then also the amount of things that they're discussing was overwhelming for her, and that's understandable.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and I think that we see this dynamic in relationships happen so often, where one partner holds in all of their grievances or doesn't communicate their boundaries for so long that then they become resentful to the point where it all comes out at once. So you're not using those fair fighting rules because you've built it up so much that then when it does finally come out, it seems kind of disproportionate to the thing that you're responding to in that moment, which is, I think, what we see with Shelly.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's exactly what we saw. I think the other thing, too, that we see from some of the cast members is how core beliefs and confirmation bias impact communication, meaning when someone has a negative belief about themselves and others, it shapes the way that they hear things. So they filter what is actually being said into what they think is being said because they're looking through the lens of their core belief.
Yeah. And I think that we also see this in the conversation between Cierra and Nic after they have sex, which, first of all, in case you didn't know,
thank you, I don't.
Every woman who has dated a man in their 20s has had this conversation.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant about sex.
That too. I wasn't going to explain sex to you, though.
Well, straight sex, I was like, I actually don't. I was like, no, go ahead. I'm open ears, open heart.
No. That this is a very common experience, especially in our current Gen Z culture of situationships. This happens so often. I think that what we saw happen in that conversation is Cierra, actually, I thought, pretty effectively verbalizing her discomfort at seeing Nic kiss other people, which is normal and expected when you're starting to care about somebody, and then needing reassurance afterward that he still liked her. Again, normal, appropriate response. And she repeatedly said to him, I don't like this feeling. I'm confused by your actions, which, if we go back to the differences between thoughts, feelings, and actions, right? She's in a feelings world right now. She's not setting any expectations for him. She's not asking for him to change. All she's asking for is reassurance. But rather than him telling her how he feels about her to reassure her about his feeling towards her, he talks about his attraction to somebody else. Sir! Obviously, that's hurtful to her.
It's not baffling to see where things might have gone wrong.
No. And I think that he probably panicked a little bit because he was interpreting her expression of emotion as an expectation for commitment that he clearly was not ready for, even though she never actually said that. And so, yeah, I think that that type of miscommunication is just another example of how what's actually being said gets filtered through our own beliefs and emotions, and then that leads to the type of communication that we see happen between the two of them.
Honestly, when I was seeing that, I was thinking about how important it is to reflect back what you hear somebody say, because as we talked about earlier, there's what people think happens, and then there's what actually is happening, and reflecting back or just summarizing what you hear someone say is really helpful in getting at that misinterpretation.
Yeah, I do that reflecting exercise in almost every couple and family therapy session that I have, because I want to avoid those types of miscommunications that we see happen between the two of them. And since Nic and Cierra didn't make sure that they were on the same page and understanding each other correctly, they both end up creating their own narratives about what happened. So we see her question her perception of the relationship and start to shut down. Meanwhile, Nic is telling the guys in the camera how strongly he feels about her, even though he didn't say that to her. And then Nic is creating the narrative that she's upset in spite of their conversation, even though she was upset because of their conversation. So then he starts talking to Ace, which, terrible decision. Terrible advice. But I will say, just to wrap up the Cierra and Nic discussion, I do want to give them credit where credit is due, because although they had this miscommunication, they ended up resolving it fairly quickly, I think within a day. And the conversation that they did have then, I think they both used pretty solid communication skills, which I think is a good sign for their relationship, because the ability to repair is so important in a couple relationship.
Yeah. Although even though Cierra is absolutely gorgeous, I do feel bad for her with the new bombshell coming in, because Andreina is a literal beauty queen. So I think that might make anyone want some reassurance.
Yeah, I think that would be fair. The other thing that I was thinking about bombshells in general is Esther Perel's research on sexuality, and how she says that we require novelty in our sex lives. And so it makes sense to me that everyone's always so attracted to the bombshells. It doesn't matter who they are most of the time. These people have only been looking at each other 24/7 for weeks on end. So any shiny new thing is going to be so much more attractive, because we need that spice, right?
Yeah. No, that does make sense. Speaking of bombshells, though, what did you think of the new bombshells and the recouplings.
Yeah, Casa was boring. The only couple from Casa Amor that I really had any interest in was Zach and Amaya.
Y'all, I swear on the therapy Bible, aka the DSM, we actually had a conversation about girls, and about the cultural differences between Miss Amaya Papaya being Dominican and the fact that the other castmates seem to not understand or appreciate that there might be some cultural differences in communication styles with her being Dominican.
Yes, this has been bothering me for weeks. Like, don't date a Dominican woman if you don't want to date a Dominican woman. Hot take: to be in a multicultural relationship requires cultural awareness. And unfortunately, the cultural awareness from these men is in the fucking basement.
Except for you, Brian. And y'all can't see this, but I'm pointing to the camera like Adriana did when she told America, I'm taking your man. So shout out to you, Brian. He was truly a king when he stood up for her. I was so happy to see that. I'm half Mexican, so it was just really nice to see somebody say, like, you just don't understand that this is how we communicate.
Yes. Yeah. And I'm also so disappointed in Zach.
Yeah.
Because I really did have high hopes for the two of them, because it seemed like he really saw her. At first, I thought that they could potentially have compatible values around affection given his cultural background. First of all, he's British. Not that British people are known for their affection, but terms of endearment are very common, and he's literally friends with Miguel, who walked in the door calling everybody love. So I was like, great, he gets it. Nope. And then
psych.
And then also from my experience living in Thailand and having both Thai and Western friends who dated there, I got the distinct impression that the cultural norms in Thailand were to be fairly affectionate and to be really comfortable with commitment early on in the dating experience. But clearly this was not the case for Zach, despite him literally telling her that he was comfortable. I'm getting so fed up with these men just straight up lying to her. And also Austin being blatantly racist towards her in the Stand on Business challenge. I was pissed, and I got even more pissed when Taylor weaponized Olandria's anger, which was an understandable and honestly mild response given how he led her on for weeks to make himself seem in the right for choosing someone else.
100% agree. I feel like there is so much to be said about Olandria being emotionally reserved, saying she has been strong her whole life and only showing emotion when she's alone. And also being the oldest, I think she said.
She's an eldest daughter.
Yeah, which there's a lot there. And I would like to get into that, but I also think that we wanted to shout out some Black creators that talk about this in depth because we feel like their perspective on this is pretty invaluable.
Yes, so we will list some of them in our show notes for today.
Yes, make sure to go check them out.
All right, we need a break from all of this stress. I'm tired, I'm drained. So here's our new segment, which we are calling Gay Thoughts, Straight Thoughts. And I think that we need to start out with our gay and straight thoughts on NicOlandria, because this coupling is everything to me.
Yeah, rip. Gone, but not forgotten. I mean, certainly not forgotten
Certainly.
If you see all the videos in our liked and watched section of TikTok.
Seriously, I mean, the therapist in me honestly does kind of think that Nic made a mature decision to stay with Cierra because of all of the time that they invested together. But the romance reader in me is devastated that they're over. And I'm also calling bullshit on them, saying that they're better as friends. Are you kidding me? The chemistry between the two of them was life-giving.
And if Callie is ever fighting for her life, what I need y'all to do is start playing a clip of NicOlandria. She will perk right up.
Seriously, I was so giddy watching that. I felt like it was happening to me. I literally called you screaming.
That's true. Just like I did with the coin toss for Shelly and Cierra. There's a voice memo of me screaming. Speaking of couples that once were, how do we feel about some of the eliminated cast members? Do we feel like any of them could have won?
Well, I think we can all agree that Nic and Olandria would have won if they stayed together.
Absolutely.
I'm honestly just so lukewarm about everybody else. Like, somehow Iris and TJ are my favorite couple right now.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I think that Hannah and Pepe might have had a real chance at making it.
Yeah, I really like Iris. I have no feelings towards TJ, but I really liked Hannah and Pepe. Justice for Pepito, you guys. He's just waiting for his girl Hannah to return. And I do have to say, I did not love the way Cierra did not validate our guy Pepe during the challenge when he asked about eliminating Hannah. I could tell he was really hurt and confused by the decision that they made. I think most of us were confused, actually. Although I am happy with the decision overall because we have our favorite cartographer, Miss Amaya Papaya. So,
speaking of Cierra, though, what are your gay thoughts about all of the girls kissing her in the heart rate challenge?
I mean, as a professional, I did feel like it was a little inauthentic and dare I say slightly performative for the male gaze, but I will take any opportunity to make this show less heterosexual. So you know what? A win is a win, y'all. Speaking of the heart rate challenge, though, what do women actually think about men in costumes?
That's a great question.
You know, as I'm thinking about this, though, I take it back because I'm remembering Miguel from last season, and I think a lot of women were considering becoming pyromaniacs after seeing him. So I think maybe favorable?
That is very real. This season, though, these costumes were not doing it for me personally.
Which is why we should be watching the Queer Ultimatum next.
Please do email us your questions or suggestions at clinicallyspeakingpod@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram or TikTok at clinicallyspeakingpod.
We hope you enjoyed listening as much as we enjoy making these episodes.
Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for our next recap.
As you know, helping professionals are not raking in the big bucks, so please make sure to subscribe to Clinically Speaking in your podcast app and follow us at Clinically Speaking Pod on TikTok and Instagram.
This is an opportunity to discuss theoretical topics, but as always, we are not diagnosing any individuals, nor are we providing clinical treatment or recommendations. We're discussing our opinions that happen to be informed by a clinical perspective. However, they are still our personal opinions. If you want to apply these concepts in your personal life, we encourage you to speak to a therapist in your area.